So do you deal with gated communities or high rises, Russell?
You know, yeah, some of them are gated and have security gates for the most part. And, I guess there's a few that are high rise.
Oh, okay. That's mostly what Dwelling Live is focused around. It does also work well for non-gated communities that have any electronically controlled amenities as well, clubhouses, gyms, pool gates that require a key fob or prox card for entry. It will suit all those needs. I will go through each module and touch on the features and functionality. As you have questions, feel free to hop in with those as we go. It's generally easier that way.
Sounds good. Thanks.
So Dwelling Live is a modular platform a community uses and pays for which modules apply to meet their needs. Credentialed access being one module that's generally all things resident related. That would include both vehicular entry through a gate, as well as I mentioned before, any electronically controlled amenities or buildings that required a key fob or prox card for entry. Visitor management, by far our most popular module, what we are most known for. Our entire platform was built around visitor management. We do also have integrated license plate recognition for tracking vehicles, both entry and exit. In credentialed access, very little hardware is generally needed to integrate a community's existing system into our platform. We integrate with about 95% of your industry standard readers out there, so the only thing required to integrate a community's existing hardware into our platform would just be swapping out the existing controller for one of our controllers. Controllers is basically the brains of the operation that decides whether to grant access or not.
Okay.
These are just some examples of industry standard readers that we're compatible with, everything from various long-range RFID and vehicular transponders to your prox card readers, keypads, and block-coded remotes. In Dwelling Live, everything is updated online. It doesn't require any centralized computer with any special software. Both administrators and homeowners can log in from any smartphone or computer to make edits to the database, enable credentials, disable credentials, add visitors, send e-passes. For visitor management, where you have a manned gate, this is the app station bundle that the guards would use to process guests. We've taken a Dell all-in-one touchscreen PC. We've loaded our Gatehouse software onto it. We have also loaded remoting software, so should a guard need technical assistance, they can call into our support line. Our support team can remote right in and make any changes necessary on the fly. We've paired that with a Zebra thermal printer to print guest passes for vehicles, and then a handheld scanner. What state are you located in?
We work nationally.
Okay. The handheld scanner for most states serves three functions. When a guest enters the community the first time, they are issued a guest pass, good for a predetermined period of time. On all subsequent entries, the guest simply presents that pass to the guards. The guard scans the barcode with the handheld scanner. As long as that pass is currently valid, the gate opens, the entry is recorded, and in they go. The second function it serves is if enabled by administrators, residents are able to send an e-pass to their guests ahead of time, in which case their guest arrives, presents their phone with that QR code. The guard scans the QR code directly off of the phone. As long as that pass is currently valid, the gate opens, the entry is recorded, and in they go. The third function the handheld scanner serves, if an unannounced guest arrives and the guard calls the resident to get authorization to grant access, rather than have to manually type in the information, they have a couple different options. They can either scan the barcode on the back of a driver's license, which will auto-populate all of that information into the Dwelling Live database, or we also have a OCR flatbed scanner that you put the license in. It will take a picture of the front of the license, OCR all of that information into the database, as well as attach a photo of the license to that entry. These are the standard guest passes that are issued when a guests arrive. It will have the community's name at the top left, whether it is a guest or vendor pass at the top right, how long that pass is valid through. The license plate number can be populated one of two ways. With our license plate recognition module, it is a true OCR system, OCR being optical character recognition, so it will convert that image into text and auto-populate this field. Without our license plate recognition module, if that's still a level of information the community wants to capture, there is an administrative setting that forces the gate attendants to manually enter that in before granting access.
Okay.
Then on each pass type, you have two customizable fields, the single bold line underneath the black box and the entire footer. And those are customizable by pass type. So you could have a different set of information or instructions on, say, a guest pass versus a vendor pass. Then the pass shows who this person is a guest of, so the guards know what homeowner is ultimately responsible for them, the guest information themselves, and then in this box here, directions from the individual gatehouses to the individual residents can either be mass imported or manually inputted by residents. The e-passes that are sent out by residents ahead of time, the system processes exactly like a paper pass. It is just an electronic way of sending that pass ahead of time. The pass will show how long it's valid through, who they're a guest of again, the guest information, and then any footer notes that were entered into that pass type. It does also integrate with Google Maps, so with a single click, the person can click View Map. That will open up Google Maps with that address, and then they can plot the route to that residence. For communities that have any unmanned locations, or in a lot of cases nowadays, locations that are only manned part-time, where a guard goes home after hours when traffic becomes minimal, we do have a scan kiosk where anyone who's already been issued a pass, either paper or electronic, can simply scan either that paper pass or their phone. Again, as long as that pass is currently valid, the gate opens, the entry is recorded, and in they go. As I said, our license plate recognition module is a true OCR system. Rather than someone have to sit down at a monitor and weed through thousands of images of plates, it does convert it into alphanumeric text, so it is a searchable and reportable field. More and more communities are putting them on not only the entrance lanes, but also the exit, just to give more of an overall view of the community and community activity. In a lot of cases, you have some type of record of when a vehicle entered the property, but no record of when or if they even left the property. So with them on the exit lane, that gives you that ability. For example, I have a community north of Atlanta. They have a large lake on their property, and they've found in the past that, say, ABC Plumbing shows up at 10 a.m. to replace a water heater, and they catch the guy at 5:30 at night fishing on their lake with a big bucket of fish that he's taking home. So their guards actually run an entry-exit report every night at 4:30 to see what vendors are still on property, and then they have their rovers go chase them down. Aside from forensics and reporting, the second function the LPR serves is speeding up the process of getting guests through the gate. The first time this vehicle pulls up in front of that camera to the guardhouse, it OCRs that license plate number. Once the guard grants entry, it attaches that plate number to that entry. So when this same vehicle shows up a week later or a year later, rather than the guards have to manually start typing and searching for that property profile, it will automatically pull up on the guard screen the last destinations that vehicle has been to. This is how license plate entries are stored in the database. It does say attach a physical image of the plate, the date and time stamp, the converted alphanumeric text, and then the lane or entry point. Our visitor management system was designed first and foremost to speed up the process of getting guests through the gate. It has always done that very, very well. I've been told by numerous security directors it takes anywhere from half to a third the time to process guests while still maintaining that high level of security and control within the community. When a resident logs into the website, this is the view they see. They will have their information Any notes or restrictions they can edit at any time that the guards will see when they pull up their property profile. Their phone numbers listed in the order they can adjust for the guards to call should an unannounced guest show up. And in their guest list, they can add, edit, delete guests, as well as send e-passes right through the website. They can also pull up a guest history rather than the burden be on the property manager. If a resident has a question of a guest arriving, or in a lot of cases, vendors, you want to know if your pest control company actually has been coming every month that you've been paying them for since you're not home during that time. A resident can pull up a log of their own guest history. These are the individual resident notification pages. The top ones apply to the website, which won't apply for much longer because we are integrating with the Front Steps website platform. And the bottom ones apply to high-rise, where you're dealing with package delivery and or valet. But the two most commonly used resident notifications are guest pass issue and denied, and guest registration confirmation. Each individual resident can set to get a text and or email anytime a guest is processed at the gate. So if you're home, you get that text, you know that John Bell just came through the main gate. He's going to be on your doorstep in 5 minutes. The second is guest registration confirmation. I'd look at that as more of a watchdog or parental control over your account. You can set to get a text and or email anytime a new guest is added to your list, just to make sure guests aren't getting added by someone who shouldn't be adding guests. We do also have a resident phone app. We are working on a new one that will integrate both platforms soon, but for now, the resident phone app is just for Dwelling Live. That is for residents to manage their guest list. Very simple, very efficient for residents to add guests via the app. In my experience, most residents that use the app one time will continue to use nothing but it. It will also access your phone book in your phone. So rather than even have to type in someone's name that's already in your phone, click search, type the first 3 letters of their name, select them from the drop down, click save, and they're now on your guest list.
You were saying that in the future, this will be incorporated into which app?
The app for our Front Steps website will be the same app for Dwelling Live. So a resident would be able to log into their account, add a visitor to their visitor list, read their community newsletter, and pay their assessments all in one place.
Great. Any timing on when that'll happen? Will it happen next year?
I am pretty confident. I am quite confident it will happen next year. Yes, it is high up on the priority list.
All right, so 2021. All right, thanks.
I do not have an exact time frame, but I do know that it is a priority.
Okay.
This is the view administrators see when they log into the website from any computer or smartphone. The first page is the community dashboard, which just shows an overall view of daily activity in the community. You can see this community so far today has done 854 visitor entries and 857 resident entries. It's also a good way of getting an idea for what percentage of resident engagement you have. This particular community is what most would consider a high maintenance community. When they first implemented Dwelling Live, they were expecting about a 30% resident engagement as far as residents managing their own guest list. You can see here so far today, 61 guests have been added by attendants and 72 have been added by residents. So they are actually hitting a much higher percentage than they initially had projected. But it's just a good way of seeing at a glance what type of engagement you have, so you know whether you need to maybe send out a reminder to guests that they can manage that themselves. Since Dwelling Live is modular, you have your individual module tabs at the top. Everything credentialed access related, your resident entry through any electronically controlled doors or gates can be managed here. You have a live monitor, which will show events as they happen, your date and time stamp, whether access was granted or denied, what property they live at, their license plate number if applicable, and then their credential number and entry point. It does also display the photos if they have been uploaded by the resident or administrators as well. As you can see, it is an auto-populating page. It will populate new events as they happen.
And on the live monitor, does that also have the ability to get hooked up to video cameras, or that's separate?
No, the live monitor is just for credentialed access events, whether a prox card, a key fob, or a vehicular transponder.
Right.
In a lot of cases, it's used at like an attended pool, where you have an attendant there making sure that the people coming through are actually that authorized resident. So they swipe their card, the attendant can see the picture of them as the person walking by.
Got it.
Administrators also have a remote control feature where with a single click, you can trigger any entry point one time, just as if a credential was presented. Or if you have either service going on at some access point, or maybe a public event that you want to lock it open, simply check that box, click hold open, and that entry point will stay open until that hold open is canceled. Access devices is just a list of all devices within the community. With a single click, you can see a brief history of any device, or you can go to our reporting tool and run a full report. When entering in a new device, in a lot of cases, either you have a tenant who has a one-year lease or a golf member that has a one-year membership. When that access device is entered, you can set it to automatically expire within the software, rather than the administrator have to set a reminder or remember to go back in and remove that credential upon that lease's expiration or that club member's expiration to the club. If it is set to expire, that person will get notifications from Dwelling Live, both 30 and 10 days prior. That kind of a reminder. If they're a tenant on a lease, they know, and they renewed their lease, they know they need to bring it down to the property manager's office to get that credential renewed. Or if they're a club member, they know their membership is expiring. They know to take appropriate action as well. Visitor management also has its own live monitor that will show events as they happen. Competing for bandwidth in the house. Date and time stamp, what the event was, a pass was scanned, a new pass was printed, what property this person is a guest of, the guest information themselves, and then which station they were processed by. Gatehouse Contacts is just a way for administrators to consolidate contact information for the gate attendants, rather than the post-it notes that are posted around most gatehouses. You can create a contact list as long as you want here that the guards have access to with one click of the mouse. Pass types. A community can create as many different pass types as they want for guests. Most communities start with a standard 4, which are basically short-term vendor, long-term vendor, short-term guest, long-term guest. Then when you go into that particular pass type, as an administrator, you can set up the restrictions around that pass. So a vendor pass might only be good Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or whatever those restrictions are. You can control how many entries per day that pass is good for and how many days that pass is good for. So all that is customizable and at administrative level. Watch list is just a community-wide watch list for anyone restricted from the community for whatever reason. It can only be, the community-wide watch list can only be added to by administrators. And the watch list, if paired with our license plate recognition module, is looking for both the person's name as well as their license plate number. If you know their vehicle number, their vehicle information, and enter their license plate number into the system, as soon as it pulls up in front of the guardhouse, it's going to pop up on the screen in red for the guard that that person is restricted from the community. These are your user permissions that administrators set for both homeowners and gate attendants. You can decide if a homeowner can add permanent guests, can they add temporary guests, can they restrict guests only from their residence, not from the property as a whole? Can they create party lists? Can they edit the directions that are printed on the passes? Can they send e-passes? You can also limit both the number of permanent and temporary guests a resident can have. Just to stop people from overloading their visitor list and never editing it. And then on this side, you have your guard permissions. Can a guard add permanent guests for a resident? Can they restrict guests? Can they assign vendors to properties? All of which is decided at an administrative level. Dwelling Live is property centric, meaning all events are attached to a property, since a property never changes regardless of how many residents come and go. So once you go into that individual property profile, you have access to all aspects of that property. Their overall account information, list of current residents, their guest list, their vendor list, all the vehicles assigned to that property, all of the access devices assigned to that property. We even take the database as far as pets. A resident can log in, enter their pet information, and even upload a photo. So should a stray pet be found in the neighborhood, you could go run a search on as little information as a brown dog, and it would show you all of the dogs that meet that criteria. Dwelling Live does store all data for at least 7 years. And when I say all data, that's why everything is attached to a property. When a resident sells their home and moves out, an administrator clicks on Clear All User Data. That will remove all the individual data associated with that address, but still keep that property profile intact. New resident moves in, they are entered into the system. If 6 months later, a question of activity from the previous resident came about, all of that data is still intact for reporting. We do not limit the amount of community staff members you can have for a community. If you want 30 different administrators, you can have 30 different administrators. There's also no limit to how many can simultaneously be logged in. Advanced search is where you would go to search the database generally on limited information. As I said, trying to locate the owner of a lost pet, or if there was a report of vehicular activity, a white Honda that ran into something in the neighborhood and kept driving. You run a report. That didn't limit us very much, but then the guard says they did see a white Honda speed out of the neighborhood, but they only saw the first 3 digits of their license plate number. Plug that in, and now you're down to 1 vehicle. Do have a full reporting tool in Dwelling Live. Administrators can run reports property-wide or based on a specific residence. You have your overall community reports, your credentialed access reports, your resident activity, and then all of your visitor management reports. And as I said earlier, residents have access to their own property reporting, both for visitors and their credentials. If parents wanted to know what time their adult child got home last night, they could go run a report to see what time their transponder was run through the front gate, just to take the burden off of the administrators. And I know I ran through that kind of fast to save time since got a lot to go through today. But great. Do you have any questions? I know I threw a lot of information at you.
No, that's great on this particular, feature. So this is going to, like you said, it doesn't really integrate with Caliber. It's kind of standalone for any software. It's software agnostic, but then you're also going to include it in a bundle with the Front Steps websites later this year.
Yeah, it will have the 3-way integration. Caliber integrates with Front Steps, and before the first of the year, Front Steps will integrate with Dwelling Live. So any data entered in, new homeowner moves in, they're put into Caliber, that will feed into Front Steps, then Front Steps will feed that information into the directory in Dwelling Live.
Also, we use TOPS One. Is there an integration there?
I will defer to my coworkers on this call. Guys, TOPS One will integrate with Front Steps, correct?
Yes, yeah. And Russell, I'm about to show you the Front Steps. Sorry about that. I'm about to show you the Front Step side of things. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like with the integration.
Terrific.
So yeah, your TOPS would feed to Front Steps, and then Front Steps would again feed into Dwelling Live. Terrific. Just to decrease that duplicate data entry.
Great.